Let's talk about Wild West End. This is one of the early geographical songs Mark Knopfler wrote. And the most interesting fact I know about this song, and I'm probably going to disappoint some of you, but Mark himself appears not to be a huge fan of this song. In the wonderful book Songwriters on Songwriting, in the interview about his songwriting, he said, quote, Wild West End leads to nowhere. Well, it's about a guy who walks around London, so it really can lead anywhere, isn't it? And most of the song, nearly all of it, is nothing but a 3-chord loop. So no lyrical or musical sophistication here. So I can sort of understand where he's coming from. It's not Sailing to Philadelphia. He wasn't 50 when he wrote it. It's very journalist-like. Think about what you see. Greasy, greasy, greasy hair. But it's a rare instance when you can find Mark complaining or discussing his songwriting in somewhat negative terms. I remember in the same period of time, he also disliked songs like The Bug or Your Own Sweet Way, presumably because of their superfluous simplicity. And I guess it's a great book if you want to know more about songwriting. But if you sum it up, nobody knows how to write songs, and nobody knows whether the song is good or not. And fans certainly love Wild West End, myself included. It's a great song. And Wild West End is one of a few early Dire Straits songs that survived all the way to the Brothers in Arms tour, where I think Mark actually found a way to make this song interesting. And live versions of this song from 1985 are one of the best things I ever heard. So definitely check out the 85 recordings from the Brothers in Arms tour. I especially recommend the San Antonio, Texas, 16th of August, 1985 bootleg version. In this arrangement, the song does in fact lead somewhere. And it's one of my favorite types of songs, where it all leads to a big, epic resolution, and you're waiting for it to happen. Very rewarding, very enjoyable. So as the studio version. And Wild West End, for the most part, is, like I said, just 3 chords. D, E minor, and G. And of course, it's one of Mark's national guitar songs, which means an open G tuning, and a couple on the 7th fret or 5th fret for live versions. In one review, I saw somebody say, in this song, this guitar sounds remarkably close to a banjo, and it's probably true because of this high capo position. Let's first outline the chord shapes, which is something I always do with open tuning songs. The D chord would be all open strings except for the 6th. E minor would look exactly like A minor in standard tuning, including the 5th string bass. Technically, it's E minor with D in the bass. Pretty much the sound of the first open strings in standard tuning. And G would be the same chord with open 3rd string, making it G with D in the bass. But I'll call it D, E minor, and G. The general strumming pattern for this song I would describe like this: thumb, up, downstroke, up, thumb, upstroke, downstroke, up. Which is pretty self-explanatory, although this downstroke is something I want to make a separate video about, because I mention it in every single lesson, but never explain what it is. Interestingly, in the first half of the riff, I mainly play downstrokes with index and middle fingers because there's more of the finger picking involved. And in the second half, for me it's mostly 3-finger strumming on the E minor and G chords. So I switch to 3 fingers here. But that's of course very individual and subject of taste. But the thing I want to point attention to here is this. When I play a downstroke, it's mostly coming from the middle finger because it's the strongest finger directly opposite the thumb, and the index or ring fingers are going for a ride with it. The important bit here, and you can see Mark do it too, no matter how many fingers I use for the downstroke, is this. My thumb automatically lands on the bass note I want to play next. And it stabilizes my hand, makes it easier to play the next note, and sounds better. Even though it blocks the bass from ringing, somehow it makes the overall sound better. Magic. Let's hear how bad it sounds without the muting. Not magic. The D chord or open G is where the riff happens, the classic Wild West End pentatonic riff. And it's remarkably easy, but I must admit, before I took a closer look at this song, I played it way differently, with lots of mistakes, and it sounded alright, but I was never satisfied with the sound. And I'll explain why I think my approach was bad in a few examples. So many details here, oh my gosh. Like always. First, I'll show the simplified version. In it, I'm going to use only 2-finger plucks, downstrokes, and upstrokes, which I do with an index finger. The basic pattern then looks something like this: bass, index upstroke, 2-finger downstroke, index upstroke. For demonstration purposes, on the first beat, I'll play 5th string bass and 2 melody notes at the same time, and go sliding from the 2nd and 3rd frets on strings 3 and 2, respectively, 2 frets up to the 4th and 5th frets. Then I stay there for 3 notes, played up and down with the picking hand. 1, 2, 3. Don't mind the open 4th string here. It sounds very good and fitting. 1, 2, 3. Then I go back through open strings like that to 3 more notes. 2 frets down. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Going to 3 open string notes again, now without any notes connecting this. 1, 2, 3. So it sounds like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This last group of 3 notes starts and ends with an upstroke. Then it's the open 5th string bass and the melody on the open 1st string with open strings on a downstroke. And notice how this bass note and a downstroke are longer quarter notes, which gives me plenty of time to get ready for this downstroke. That's the simplified riff part. The second part would be 2 chords with a complete picking pattern. And 3-finger downstrokes strumming. Now I'll play it slowly and then discuss many problems with this approach. 2, 3, 4. The first problem I hear is these very first notes. If I play it properly like this, they are very pronounced, very loud, and since this riff is going through an entire song and gets repeated a million times, every 4 bars you would hear this loud, crispy note. Which is good in and of itself, but when repeated so many times, it becomes too noticeable. Sounds a little bit too bright to me, so my solution is this. First of all, on this first beat, I'm not playing a single bass note, and I'm not playing with fingers at all. In fact, I do what I call a thumb downstroke, and only then do I perform this slide. And it solves so many problems. Now I get a mellower, less pronounced bass note, and this slide gets mellower too. Because even if I cover only 3 strings with this thumb downstroke, it's enough to at least to get this 3rd string slide. And on acoustic guitar it usually means wound strings and the slide gets amplified. But I can usually get the sound of the 2nd string too. It becomes very subtle, very mellow, and I love it. That's the first aha moment for me, the thumb downstroke. In order to perform this thumb downstroke, I rest my thumb on the 5th string, then press the string a little, and then I let the thumb naturally fall off the string. with some collateral damage, taking 2, 3 or even 4 strings with it. And then coupled with the downstroke technique I showed earlier, then thumb returns to playing position. It creates this rich, expanded sound, perfect for a song like this. As for upstrokes, like I said before, instead of plucking the strings with 2 fingers, because it's somewhat energy consuming and sounds too bright for this song, in cases like this I usually just strum it up with my index finger like so. And because I don't want to play anything with my middle finger gets out of the way a little. Just enough to clear the string. And then it gets ready for the next downstroke. It's very energy efficient. Don't forget to anchor your hand, by the way. Another thing I would do differently is I would want to save this constant drone effect on bass strings on beat 1 and 3. So this downstroke on beat 3 also gets replaced by the thumb downstroke. So does the downstroke on beat 1 in the second bar. This way I can achieve 3 things at the same time. A mellow sound from the slide, which sounds better and less harsh when repeated so many times. Similarly, I get constant warmer bass notes. And most importantly, I get a pattern which is very consistent through an entire loop. And when I combine the 2 parts with picking and strumming, either of them doesn't sound out of place. The last thing I want to say here is this. When you play this riff, the position changes 3 times. And position in guitar playing means the position of the index finger in the fretting hand. First, it's kinda in the 1st fret position. Then it's in a 3rd position. Then it's in the 1st again. Then returning back to open. And when this position changes, it all involves open strings. These open strings sound good both if I play an upstroke here or if I choose to do a pull-off like this. That's not strictly pull-offs, it's more like a slightly accentuated position change. Or very subtle pull-offs. And if I play pull-offs, then only play pull-offs, then this rhythm sounds almost like a heartbeat. And no surprise, this is a heartbeat of the song, this amazing rhythm guitar part. Also, for some reason, I used to play this song with this 3rd fret note instead of the open 1st string here. Ooh. The sound is very close, but my version was bad because it forces you to this quick jump to the E minor chord. And this music doesn't feel good with jumps like this. And most importantly, it simply sounds inferior to the open string because when I play it on the 3rd fret, the sound is too missing the 3rd and too bright. Which is not something I would like to hear in the riff like this. Open strings give me a sound that blends in. Sounds like it belongs. And then when you speed this riff up to the original tempo, it doesn't sound as piercing and low-key annoying as the stock picked version I played before. So I think because of that, and because the riff is repeated a million times through the song, it's the preferred route. I can play it like this the whole day. All the notes and beats are in balance, no notes that are too loud or too obvious, the bass is mellow and in the background, the pattern is continuous and sounds like a proper rhythm guitar part. Could Mark play this rhythm like this? Possibly. If you chase a good sound, every single detail matters, and I think I covered enough details to worry about here. And if you want proof of, say, thumb downstroke, if you listen closely to the original, to the steel guitar part, you can clearly hear the fourth string ringing. So it's either gonna be thumb and all three fingers, or somehow thumb playing two of the bass notes and fingers plucking the melody. Which is very awkward. In fact, both ways are awkward. I couldn't find any other way to approach this that would sound good. That's why I'm confident to present my version, like in all my videos, because I tried all of them and found the one that sounds the best and easiest to play, the one that suits the song. I'm trying to think like a songwriter and come up with the type of sound that suits the song. The second and the only different part in this song is this A minor part. Which is very, very, very short, but also very, very, very enjoyable to play. And it makes for a very fresh sound after repeating the riff for so many times. And I like it because the first chord happens to be this. Open, 2, 3, 2, 3, open. It's one of my favorite chord shapes, and in standard tuning it would be a half diminished chord or minor sixth chord. It's one of the most enjoyable chord shapes, I think, because the fretting hand is almost in a natural closed position. And it's symmetrical and beautiful too. And I assume it would be played just like the sixth string run in Romeo and Juliet. Using the thumb for 3 bass notes and 3 fingers for the remaining 3 notes. Notice how in this tuning the 3rd fret on the 2nd string note is exactly the same note as the open 1st string. And it's a great sound. And it's even possible to achieve this echo effect if these notes are played 2 times in a row. Which I usually do with 1 finger, like in postcards from Paraguay. But in Mark's case, and in the studio version of the song, it usually goes through a downstroke and open 3rd string to the next chord. But you can hear this echo in the live 85 versions, where Mark played this rhythm himself. Next chord is a G major, like in the verse, played in arpeggio like this. Strings 5, 4, 3, 2. An unusual F chord, F major. Unusual because the best way to play this is to save energy and hold bar with the ring finger across 4 inner strings. Save time not moving the hand much. Not often can you see a bar like this. It's worth it. But when combined with the previous chord, it's so enjoyable to play. And if you play it on a national guitar, it will be music to your ears. The ending of this part, I think, is the most mysterious part because the ways it can develop are many. The simplest would be this. Repeat the open G passage, then keep the bass ringing, and I play this bluesy line through open strings. And a slide. The notes are 4th and 3rd frets on strings 4 and 3, and the slide is 2 frets up. And between notes I play subtle pull-offs. The variations could be here. I can shorten the notes by muting the strings. I can play downstrokes instead of muting. I can play with the thumb and index finger. I can play short bass and short upstrokes. So in the end, this part is more improvised than the others. And if you ask me, I think the simplest version is the best here. Because lead guitar can apply all the tricks and muting while the rhythm stays simple. That's something you can learn from jazz comping, where you leave space for a soloist to shine. There are also some variations of the main riff, and all courtesy of Mark Knopfler himself. I took these directly from the studio version, and understandably, if you have a riff that's repeated so many times through this almost 5-minute song, naturally it gets changed here and there. And here are at least 5 ways to do it. On the last G chord, it's this kind of bluesy note on the 3rd fret of the 4th string. and it just gets played while the pattern is being played. No difference in the picking hand here. This is a very good sound as found on the studio version. Another variation is possible on the E minor chord. And that one involves this pull off from the 3rd fret third fret 1st string, bluesy again. The other 3 variations are happening on the open G chord, because after all it's easier to embellish the open chord anyway. And another one is this one. Before the E minor chord, there are 2 pull-off notes on strings 4 and 3. Sounds very good. I usually play it with a bar, but it's possible to continue using 2 fingers too. It sort of blends in with the E minor chord because it's a part of it. This one here is, I play a slide on the 3rd string from the 2nd fret to the 4th fret and back. Which is actually exactly the time needed to go to the E minor chord. And the last one is quite similar to the slide one, but I play a little melody starting from the 1st fret of the 2nd string. This is enough variation to break the monotony of the constantly repeating riff. And nothing stops us from coming up with our own ways to make it more interesting, if we want to. With this said, I want to discuss the standard tuning version a little bit, because I always loved the sound of these 2 guitars together, and Mark is known to be very good at coming up with these amazing rhythm guitar parts. That's why I've been making videos about it for 10 years already, right? But here in particular, something about this sound of a simple standard tuning guitar, strumming, and simple chords, and this fancy national guitar with open strings and high capo position that just works and provides our favorite Knopfler magic. Same feeling when I play postcards from Paraguay, where 2 rhythm guitars are so well suited to each other that I can't imagine them separately. When it comes to simple rhythm guitar parts with simple standard cowboy chords like this, there are two main questions. Which fingerings sound the best here, and how to make a 3-chord part more interesting. Fingering wise, it's obvious that there are at least 3 ways to play the standard G chord, and at least 3 ways to play or embellish the E minor. And with D major, there are options for a more open sound, maybe additional bass notes. So it's easy to play it either too busy or more likely too boring. I found out for this song in particular, the best combination is as follows: D chord reinforced with A in the bass. Also, because the national guitar part is so bright and happy to begin with, omitting the third on top in this rhythm part would be a great option. It makes this D very powerful, exactly the kind of support you need. Then it comes to E minor. Through my entire life, I thought that has to be the E minor 7th, because it sounds like it. But when I took a closer look at the song, I found out actually simple, bare bones E minor sounds the best here. Again, something about the national guitar part that makes this simple choice of chord the best in this situation, especially if you play this brushing upstroke. That's a very pleasant sound, which I tried to demonstrate in my intro. When it comes to G, in my opinion, here's what I like: the approach similar to D here. When I omit the thirds by playing this so-called full G with 3rd fret across first 2 strings, and I mute the 5th string, which makes it very powerful. And like with the D chord, it supports the national guitar perfectly. No major embellishments here are needed with the part so simple, but on the record you can obviously hear this D being gradually transformed into D sus2. And generally this open E string does sound very good on all the chords, whether it's D, E, or even G. Interestingly, and this is where my mind and ears really surprised me again, for the A minor part, I always imagined it simply being a plain, good old A minor, then G, F, and D. But upon closer inspection, I realized that on the studio version of the song, Mark chose to go for A minor 7th here. Which is such a small detail, but it makes a dramatic difference. So I go A minor 7th, G with open B now, F, and back to D. And I played this version of G because it provides a better voice leading here. But this A minor 7th, man. It reminds me how in the song Water of Love from the same album, it also changes from a simple minor chord in one part of the song to a minor 7th in the chorus. And it's hands down my favorite part about Water of Love. The thing about minor 7th chords, at least from the guitar perspective, is that A minor 7th is exactly the same thing as C major with A in the bass. And this slash chord provides a touch of sophistication, a small, tiny drop of sophistication, and this pleasant, sweet sound, which is enough to transform an ordinary free song into a masterpiece when applied correctly and with taste. That's all I have to say about this song. For the solos, I'll consider recording more videos, but frankly, my heart lies in rhythm guitar parts like this. Subtle, well-crafted, played with precision. Parts that sound way simpler than they really are. So I hope I uncovered some of the secrets of Wild West End for you. This is Mark Knopfler's Songbook. My name is Pavel, and I hope to see you in more songs breakdowns like this. If you enjoyed it, please hit subscribe or consider supporting me over on Patreon. There is no additional unique content there, but it directly helps me to get new strings, new equipment like this, and things that keep me afloat. Keep Knopflering, and bye.